the thing that I found extremely exciting when I got into the business was like listening, because I had never been exposed to sales. Okay. Like marketing, I was able to figure that out quickly. That's not whatever, right?
Right.
But I had never touched sales, and a lot of that was just, I just wasn't in that kind of environment. And then the first time I sat down and I listened to brokers on calls, on cold calls, on client calls, and just listening to them talk, I was like, oh, wow, this is just actually Shakespeare.
Hey, welcome again, everybody, to the Zelnik Exchange podcast. I am your host, Cory Zelnik, and I'm here today with Flannery Fly Jamerson. Nobody knows Flannery, but everybody knows Fly. Fly is the Director of Growth and Partnerships at MoVO Media Marketing, a social media marketing agency for busy commercial real estate professionals. Fly co-hosts Social Surge, a CRE marketing morning talk show with the one and only Mo Regalado. This dynamic duo also leads Social Mastery VIP, a digital marketing community for CRE brokers. Fly also serves as a fractional chief of staff at CREI Summit, the premier CRE conference for using digital tools for business development. Fly has an MFA, I love it, Master in Fine Arts in Theater, Film, and Television from the University of Arizona, go Bears, and was a writer and producer in the entertainment business for 15 years before she started helping brokers sling buildings. My friend Fly, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm appropriately dressed.
Appropriately dressed with the Zelnik logoed hat. I'm so glad we finally sitting down to do this. It is long overdue. I am, if I am not number one, I am 1A, biggest fan of yours. And I want you to share everything with everybody. I know what you're doing now. I got your backstory a little bit, but I want to dig into a little bit. I'm excited for what you're doing with Mo, but let's go back. Came out of University of Arizona. Walk us through it.
Yeah, well, Tucson is incredible, and it was a really special time in my life to be in graduate school. When you're an artist, there's really not very much to do except,
Right.
So I was like, I'll go be a professor, and I quite enjoyed it. And I left the University of Arizona, and it was 2019, and it's going into the industry. And, what I found out about the arts industry is that there's a huge section of it that's not very industrious at all. So I wasn't making a lot of money. And then the pandemic hit, and I had my daughter the very same week in March 2020. And so
nice.
it was a perfect storm of, I had intentions to continue in my career, as I had sort of imagined it, and then the world fell apart, and I was like, all right, so what can I do that employs, this very niche set of skills that I've been using and actually make some money? Which is how I got into marketing. But I've held on to, all of the kind of work, in terms of, creating stories and writing narratives, and particularly around, writing dialogue. I worked a lot on scripts, for things, evaluating them, shaping them, judging them a lot. And, so when I accidentally got into commercial real estate, after my family moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I went in-house in a brokerage. I had my own clients in social media marketing at the time, like for a pest control company, which I don't mean as a dig, but I was just picking up random gigs.
Sure.
And then I met these brokers, and I didn't know anything about commercial real estate. I was like a little punk kid, who I'm living in a trailer park in the desert, right?
So what was it that swayed? What did they sway you with to get you to come aboard?
It was a lot about the messaging. It was the particular, messaging of the company at the time. And I didn't spend time with business people, real estate people, finance people. I was always back of house. Like I'm not, I didn't really, rub shoulders with anybody. And then it surprised me that I met a bunch of people who were, incredibly optimistic about the community and building and helping people, and just like it was a different take on what I had come to sort of develop in my mind as like what real estate people are like. And then I got into it, and I did still think I was kind of taking a boring office job where I was just like, and no offense to any of this, but like, make my little Canva graphics and have, clock out for lunch or whatever. Right. Like, and there's plenty of people who do that, and it's fine, but I am also not the kind of person who I can't sit on my hands. And so,
no, but I think, the way our business has evolved, it's a very needed part, the creative aspect, dare I say the art part, but it's part of it, right? It's not just taking the pictures and Google Earthing and Google Mapping and things like that. It's how you utilize that information. And I think that, it's a tribute to you in terms of your creativity and how to handle that, and then how to put it towards, to use your phrase, slinging buildings. Well, I love that, by the way.
That actually, and my friend Fabian Edwards, who's an office broker in Baton Rouge, he's the one I first heard that from. Okay. Yeah, so I need to attribute the quote where it belongs. You know what I mean? But it's true. I mean, and I had also never encountered, the first time I heard a broker use the word inventory in relation to properties and an asset class, I was like, nobody understands, nobody talks about buildings like this. And so what was incredible to me about when I started, not only was I surprised about people, I was surprised about the industry. And as you said, there's a lot of space and need for that creativity and that storytelling. But the thing that really rocked me was when I realized the kinds of stories that are, not just in our little community, among the people who, are active on social and CRI Summit and all that stuff, but just like the stories are incredible, they're epic, and they're absolutely real. And there's no fiction could compete with the kind of performance and politics and, building of empires and falling of empires, all that stuff they talk about in The Real Deal, right? Which I love,
and but that's the truth, that's the truth. And I think that, it was always the truth, but I think the way the world has evolved, we all have, a much larger playground, to play with and put out information and go after it. And, tribute to you and Mo, and now the way you utilize social media and look, guys that might be considered dinosaurs in our industry, right, have been around for a long, long time, are wildly successful in utilizing this, to the nth degree. I mean, you look at, Knackle and Ashley and Ken Ashley and these guys, and it's amazing, right? You talk social media now with people, people within the industry and stuff like that. And, and even when I talk to my daughter about it, they look at me like, wait, you're an old man, what are you doing? But it's important, and having, I wouldn't even say a support system, but having teammates.
Oh yeah.
Like you are hugely beneficial to what we're doing today, because you could look at a building, or you could look at a house, or you could look at a warehouse, and there ain't much there. But it's, there's a line, and you're probably too young for this, from Stripes, the movie Stripes, okay? And there was a character. There was just like a true. It was a comedy, and it was a true character in it. And it was like they were mocking him, and he said to the guy, Bill Murray, who was the star of the movie, said to the guy, it's the stories you tell. It was just the way he formatted it, and that's what it is. This great story behind what we do, and Bob with Ed Winslow, and they're perfecting it, and a lot of other guys are doing it too. And the way Zach Mosler is putting out a story for what he's right, exactly.
Well, I really don't think that y'all realize what you're up against. Like, I now have come to understand that there are kind of two interesting things, going on for brokers who want to activate on social media. One of them being that, like, you just don't have time, and you don't have time I know the amount of time that it goes to putting some of this stuff out there. And like, look, it's my full-time job. And so, and what's interesting to me is that it is being, all this marketing stuff, all this content, all these stories, everything, it's being deployed in support of, major transactions, because entertainment doesn't make any money. You get your little X payout or your little payout from Facebook, and you're going to get some DoorDash and you're going to have a nice time. Mm-hmm. But the only way to make money, which is why I left the entertainment business, is to transact on selling buildings. That's why we're here. But
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there's more. Obviously, there's more, right? There's more, but just like if you kind of make it black and white, building relationships and networking so you don't have time. You have to deal with it's a double-edged sword or a two-sided coin, whatever metaphor you want to use here. But most of the people in the industry aren't activating on social media still. For lots of different reasons. And then sometimes you guys get a lot of grift from them, or not grift. Sometimes you guys get a lot of
shit. We get shit.
Yeah. And then you go rip a big deal and leave them in the dust. Okay. So there's that. No. But on the particular example of somebody like Zach Molzer, which this is where it gets really, really interesting for me, is that people who are in real estate, in development, in finance, in business have a horrible reputation in popular culture. And so my little nerdy MFA sometimes, I still, I'm utilizing it because I actually think it's something that should be explored. But if you look at the last century of popular culture, like representations of developers and brokers and stuff, there are zero positive examples.
Interesting.
And so when we have all these conversations, like, stuff that's going on in New York or across the country in terms of affordable housing and policy and all that kind of stuff, the reason that we have voters, and actually some scientists at Yale, they actually proved this, like there is a negative association when you talk about developers and people who build for profit. And then they make decisions based on a movie they saw when they were 6. Like it's really interesting. But so for me, the content exists, yes, to build relationships, yes, to ultimately transact on those relationships. We have got that down. I'm not worried about that. But in the bigger picture, a part of the thing that I've realized, like when I first met you at Bob's grand opening of his new office, and I was looking around at all of you lovely people, and I'm just like, holy shit, half the world thinks y'all are the bad guys. I know. So, I don't really, but that's, Somebody told me not to worry about that and go make some money.
No. By the way, feel free to cuss.
I know. I'm just a nice little girl in Louisiana.
Oh, easy does it there, pal. But that's the reality of it, and oftentimes when I speak to the the young guys and gals that work for me, especially when they first come on board, I talk to them specifically about being in the real estate business. Don't be in the real estate brokerage business, because the word broker, while it says it on all of our licenses, has a negative connotation. It's very, I'm sure there's some survey somewhere, but in whatever order, I don't think we're, public enemy number 1, but we're on that list somewhere, and we're probably pretty close to car dealer, and
it's bad.
That's bad, right? Exactly. But I think that, and so if you go into the business, we often talk about how the business is relationships and the information share. And if you get to know the prospect, right? The prospect, and you share information with them, and you don't sell them something, that helps.
It's huge.
And I tell, and I'm sorry, and just one last thought. And I tell my guys this all the time. We got plenty in the industry. They'll give a license to anybody who passed the test, and we got plenty of people in our business that make money. Hey, do you want to buy? Do you want it? No, goodbye. And they make money doing it. God bless them. And so you got to figure out your niche, and that's a benefit of the business too, is that you can figure out how you want to play your role within it. So I think it's important.
Well, and I mean, look, I haven't even been, on this day of filming, it's March 18th, 26. I have not even been in the business for 2 years.
Really?
I haven't been in the business for even 2 years.
Wait. When you say the business, what business are you
commercial
referring
real
to?
estate.
Come on, I forget the name of the firm. What was the name of that firm?
The Elephant. My first day at Elephant was April 29th, 2024.
How could that be?
And I didn't, and one day before then, I had not heard Bob Knackle's name. I didn't know any of this was here. It's been pretty fast.
I thought it was early on when I met you by Rock Center that time.
You did. That was in September of that year. That was 5 months later. So from 5 months, in 5 months, I went from not knowing Bob Knackle's name to being at the grand opening of the Map Room. It's been pretty crazy.
No, so wow, so you've had a meteoric rise, and certainly in the industry as far as I'm concerned, because whenever we talk amongst ourselves, whether I'm talking with Stephanie and Lauren, or if I'm talking to other brokers involved with the social media aspect of what we do, it's mow and fly, and so that's kudos. No, that's kudos to you in terms of where you've gotten in quite frankly a short time.
Well, it's been a short time, but I do. If people, when I started doing the cold callers series, everybody thought I was a broker. And I understand.
Really?
Well, not everybody. A lot of people sort of thought that I was a broker, and that makes sense because I was acting like a broker because I was like, if I'm going to make it in this business, I need to figure out how to be able to talk on the phone with people, which I was very, very bad at. Right. But I guess the reason that I say that is because I really thrive in an eat what you kill environment. Okay. And so, and I didn't spend time with a lot of people like that. By the time I was in high school, I was doing more, like art extracurriculars, and I was the president of every club. Like, I was that girl. It was really textbook. And, but so I wasn't in organized athletics at the time because I was too busy running the National Honor Society or whatever. And, so
what sports were you involved with?
Well, no, I wasn't in high school, but
you wasn't.
No, that's what I'm saying is it's like, when we talk, I was listening to you and Gabe talk on your show about, college athletics and kind of looking at, kind of that trajectory of people into the business, which I think is really interesting. But I wasn't spending time with those people. But younger, I was a mean softball catcher. I could catch a softball and I could throw it at you too.
Good for you. Yeah, we often, the sports, the sports connection for salespeople in any industry really goes back to the discipline that we learn at a young age. And practice and do it again, gets you that rhythm. And then when you find as you get older, it's really something that can't be taught. You can get around the discipline aspect, but the get up and go on your own can't be taught. It's innate, and if it's not there, it's just not there. It doesn't make somebody a bad person. It's just not there. That's why you oftentimes, find the sports as a focus when people are talking about salespeople. It comes up, people look at it. I know, Bob does it, I do it. If a resume comes in, we oftentimes go straight to the bottom of the resume, which, where it has the extracurriculars, right? And you want to see if they've played team sports and things like that. It's a big part of it. It's a big part of it.
Well, yeah, and I don't, I don't have a pedigree. I don't have, some of my history is spotty at best, But the thing that I found extremely exciting when I got into the business was like listening, because I had never been exposed to sales. Okay. Like marketing, I was able to figure that out quickly. That's not whatever, right? Right. But I had never touched sales, and a lot of that was just, I just wasn't in that kind of environment. And then the first time I sat down and I listened to brokers on calls, on cold calls, on client calls, just listening to them talk, I was like, oh, wow, this is just actually Shakespeare. Like, I immediately, it's like, because my background is so strange. Like, I try not to spend too much time talking about it. But in terms of how so much of the actual conversation, how much is engineered, and not to say that it's in any way manipulative, but just like the psychology of sales and the way that the way that you actually put together and decide how to and when to deploy words to get what you want is exactly what I specialized in for 15 years.
Okay.
And so that has been really interesting to me to sort of see, like, okay, you can get people to buy buildings by just talking to them. That's a lot of money to be able to move around by just talking to them. Well, and that's when I started to get extremely obsessed with this.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. And keep this in mind too. And I know you've heard it before. Not only is it the talking, but it's the listening. Okay? It's the listening. It's huge. Right? And then, the old cliche of 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's the listening. And that's what makes the rock star. Because we all know, the building, it's $10 million, the beautiful apartments, it's beautiful. You got to listen. And too often, especially with the young, I'll go some millennials, but on down Gen Z, they just don't shut the fuck up. Okay? They just want to talk. They want to talk.
That's me. Oh, no.
No, I know, but I'm giving you, this is your helpful hint of the day to listen, because what happens is often you're giving your spiel, okay? And within the course of your spiel, you ask a question, okay? But you're so concerned about the next thing you want to ask, you're not paying attention to the answer. Think about that. And that's what happens too often. And so my guys know, they and quite frankly, even my wife sometimes, I just go, and they think something's wrong with me. I said, no, I'm just listening. I just stop. And it freaks people out because so many people just continuously speak. And they feel that they talk over each other. And I'm like, I just shut up. I sit around that table. I have 9 people talking. They ask me a question, but they're still talking. I just shut my mouth. And somehow I'm the one there's something wrong with me. So, but think about that, though, as you approach, now that, you have this role and maybe you're pitching new clients and things like that, stop yapping for a minute and listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot to that. I think that I've been through now so many instances of not shutting up and being like, oh. And it, I mean, what for you, how many reps does it take? How many losses does it take? How many times of fucking up does it take before you really start to get better?
As long as it takes, as many as it takes. As long as it takes, as many as it takes.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Because we're in the business that we are in there's no timetable on any of it. Because and I'm speaking purely from the brokerage perspective, we make no decisions. I'm not the buyer. I'm not the seller. I'm not signing the piece of paper for anybody. So you can't put a time frame on things in terms of our role. And so you just keep going. You keep going until you get the sale. You keep going after the sale falls through and you got to start it all over again. You get back up and you just keep going. That's really the essence of what we do. I mean, and I know I keep referring to Bob because he's a common friend of ours, but he will tell you, I will tell you, there are, for all the accomplishments, okay, if you were able to write it all down on a piece of paper, there will be more failures and more misses.
Yeah.
But, and the common, going back to sports, baseball analogy that we talk about often is that if you get a hit 3 in 10 times, 3 out of 10, 30%, you're going to the Hall of Fame. And that's literal in baseball. So if you could work under that mindset a little bit, you do 3 and 10 in our business, and you're fucking Bob Knackle times 3. So I'm just saying. So
Moneyball is my favorite movie.
There you go.
Gosh, it's just, don't make emotional decisions.
It's and there's another movie that you're too young for. It's called Wall Street. Okay,
Yeah.
And Michael Douglas, who was the star, and Charlie Sheen, who was the other star, in the course of the movie, he said, and Charlie Sheen's character, his name was Bud Fox, and Michael Douglas said to him, "Never get emotional about a stock, Bud Fox." It's a well-known line, and you can't do that.
Well, and then, and that's the thing, I will take the industry to task because everyone's always like, oh, it's not an emotional business. It's not an emotional business. And I understand that when people talk about, like residential real estate versus commercial real estate and what the reasons that people are actually buying, and how many times have I heard somebody say like, oh no, it doesn't pencil. And then they're done. Like they just move on. It's fine. Like that's great. Not a lot of wasting time on the numbers. However, the business is so emotional, and I've seen it.
Oh yeah.
In the way that people show up online, the way that, just like the history of even just our community and the people who have come and gone, and then
it's how you channel it. It's how you channel it all. Is important, right? And that's how it works. That's how it works. As the person in the middle, the broker, right? You have to control the emotions. You have to be careful how you dialogue with both sides. If you show too much emotion, it costs you a sale, or it costs somebody more money, whatever the case may be. So you have to be very, very careful about that stuff. It's huge. It's huge. It's not the same. It's clearly not the same emotion of going to a home and saying, "Oh we'll look at that lovely bathroom that they built in the bed." It's not that emotion, but it has emotions. We're very veering away to stories, and I think we could sit here for hours. But I want more of you.
I always do a very good job. It's my job to disappear. It's literally I know. It's my job to disappear.
And I'm letting you know I'm paying attention to that. So tell me, we did some backstory in the course of all of those stories. What brought besides knowing each other, but what brought you and Mo together, for you to become part of MoVO Media? Yeah, so originally
this is actually one of my favorite stories from the original season of Cold Calling Cold Callers was I couldn't cold call her because that was not a viable option. So I cold DM'd her on LinkedIn, and I made up fake lyrics to the Carly Jepsen song that's like, call me maybe, like, here's my number. Anyway, so I made a little, like, before there was AI or anything, I just like wrote it, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, content maybe? And we made a video about Crexy being a great example of like a brand that was doing good commercial real estate content, because they do amazing, content, the whole team over there, and Shanti Ryle on the podcast, and it's just like really good stuff, right? So we made a collab video, and then it did really well, and then like 2 weeks later we met at the summit for like 5 minutes. I got to see her in person, and I was still all very new, and then we just kept like texting and sharing memes and stuff, and then here's what happened. Yeah. When it was time for me to move on from the local brokerage here, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And at that point, she and I had already decided that we were going to do Social Surge. But it wasn't in any kind of formal agreement or arrangement or engagement, like of me joining the agency. So I went to another position at the time, but she and I still continued to be friends and talk. And we always talked about wanting to do stuff. It just didn't work. And then it was after ICSC Vegas last year.
Okay.
Some conversations were had on the top of the Paris Hotel at the Colliers party, which one day I gotta tell that story in 20 years. When I'm 20 years into the business.
No problem.
Anyway.
We'll do another podcast.
We'll do a recap. Anyway, I called Mo and I was like, I gotta get back to what you and I want to do. And they were like, all right, let's do it. And so then we just started. And so, Hector and Mo are such lovely people, and one of the things I have, realized about myself in this business is that while I have a lot of ambition and I have a lot of discipline, a lot of drive, and a lot of momentum, for reasons that I think are due to my tenure and then also just who I am, like I want to be part of a team. I want to be I really thrive when I'm mission control and like the operators are out on the planet like that. I understand where I thrive, and I do not want to be the boss of myself. So, so it's like, why, I know a lot of guys who like they get into the business and they're like, oh, sales, I can't do sales, but they're a heck of an analyst. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so there's so many different. I have a really odd trajectory and entry into the business, but in terms of, the hierarchy of, how things are all functioning, like I really, it's an important role to have. Like what would you do without Stephanie? I don't know what you would do without Stephanie. You'd be lost without Stephanie. You know what I mean?
How much did she pay you?
What's that? She didn't know. No, you don't understand. I gotta take care of my people. You take care of your people. I'll take care of my people. All right. It's all gonna be all right.
I'm with you.
So, but then here's the thing: is that I actually, I did get a little bit of the sales bug. So, now my role, and I've spent the last 2 years listening to all you schmucks talk about how you're slinging stuff. And, I read all of Rod's books. Like, I get it. How could I not want to be in business development when I listen to Bob Knackle's voice every day? And so now my job is really to not only continue to grow and refine and innovate inside of what the agency is already doing, which is just, there's so much opportunity for creativity. That's great. And then figuring out how to, deploy it to help you all make more money. So I'm still doing all of that kind of, work, but then having having conversations and, just in the same way that you pick up the phone, you call somebody, you have something of value to give to them, I've been building those relationships for the better part of 2 years and really getting to understand, in the same way that you can specialize in an asset class and better help your prospect or your client. Like there's a huge difference in just going and hiring somebody random to do your marketing off the street versus like, I talk to you guys all the time. All I do is talk to brokers, and so having that understanding of what actually goes on at the table, understanding your business goals and what you need to do, and the pressures that you have on your time, and the kind of all the kind of stuff. Like Mo and I understand that because we're immersed in this world, and it's going to help me take care of you better and help you make more money because all of this stuff. Huge distraction,
no.
Right? You don't have time.
No, I agree with you. And quite
but
frankly,
here I'm just yapping.
That's okay.
I'm supposed to talk.
I'll let you go.
Okay.
No, you speak with wisdom, and that's the important part of what we're trying to do here is have some fun and offer some wisdom. I think that obviously, since I know you, and I really thought it was longer. But for the short time that I know you, I've become so fond of you, and you know that. And I think that your trajectory is limitless. I think that just getting together with Mo, however you did it, whatever you did, being with her, I think you're both you're similar and complementary at the same time. So I think that you have a great rise here, and no one is going to support you more than me. And I think that when we do this again, and we're going to do this again, I'm not waiting 40 years to do it again with you, okay? But when we do it again as a follow up, maybe next year or something, I'm excited because your enthusiasm is palpable, and your skill set is huge. And I think you're just unleashing it, and you don't even know what's going to happen. But I'm telling you, it's fire, as they say. It's fire, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm happy for you, and I am grateful to you for spending this time with me.
Thank you for having me and for everything.
You're very welcome, and I'll talk to you real soon. Okay.
Okay.